All right. Gabriel,
All
being the
right,
back. Yeah.
all right. Thank you very much. Let me just turn on my camera. Okay. I hope everyone can see me. Yeah, thank you very much. So, it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to, PIP team for having me today. So very quickly, we're going to be talking about like UX, like best practices, right, for product managers. Um, Before I get started, let me share my screen. So please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we
Oh,
can.
all right. All right. Thank you very much. I would love for this to be interactive, but so maybe what I'll do is, we're going to be on the call for like next 1 hour. So I'll use like 45 minutes or less than 45 minutes, right, at most to like touch on everything I'm going to be talking on today, and then like can take questions after. Is that fine?
Yes, please. That works
Uh,
for us. Yeah, that works for us. I
oh,
speak for everyone and I say that works for us.
all right, all right. Thank you very much. So basically, right, today we're looking at UX best practices, right, for product managers, and I want to assume that we have a lot of product managers on the call. I know like some designers might be joining because I posted like the link. But I want to believe like majority of people joining this call will be like product managers, basically. So basically, right, during the course of this webinar, we're looking at the introduction, just talk about like roles of product managers and UX designers. Some of us were already like conversant with like some of the roles, but we'll just touch on them for people who are new into like these fields, right? And after that, we'll look at integrating UX into product development, right? How can we like integrate um some of all these processes, right, some of all these methodologies into our product development, and then why we should do that, right? And then look at the best practice, which is why we're here, basically. Now, we majority of us like really already understand like the roles of the product manager, right? Product managers are the one who are in charge of seeing um the products developed basically, right? They set goals, they collaborate with other cross-functional teams, right? Just so like those goals can be met, right? So but when we look at UX designers basically they're all about like the experience of the product, right? Right from like research to like usability. Is this product usable by Okay, sorry, I thought someone hand was raised. Is this product usable by like users, right? Um, how do the users feel using this product? Basically, like that's where UX designer comes into play. All right. Now let's dive into integrating UX into product development. Now, this first chart we're looking at this chart that this flow basically has no UX in it, right? And then I'll just take us through this in a bit. So every solution, every product out there literally starts with an idea, right? An idea of like assumption, right? Someone might just sit down one day and say, "Oh, I'm having problem with this. What if there's a way that could make things easier for people?" Right? It's just an idea, right? So before before you start designing and doing all of those things, right, you need to like validate the idea. But for a flow without like UX, right, a flow that does not integrate UX into like the product development stage, you would normally see that once that idea or once that client or stakeholder or that organ gets that idea, they sharply push it to developers and say, oh, this is what I want to build, right, start building. Or they can get like a product manager to put together a documentation. Mind you, like there's no form of UX in this flow. The product manager probably like puts together like documentation based off what the order said or what the client or stakeholder said. And then right after that, you would see like developers start building like just prototypes, right? They start doing like development. I've been in this situation before. Um, um, at the earlier stage of my career, right? So I know what I'm saying. So you see, like developers build their ideas, right? They test the solution. Sometimes they don't even test the solution, and then sometimes they launch, and everybody's raising, trying to raise money. And along this side, you would see like a lot of problems, right? You might encounter like a lot of problems. It's possible for this orga or this stakeholder to have this idea, build it out like this, and then it works, right? In rare cases, it's possible that it works that way. But then again, it's not like it's gonna work all of the time, right? Because if you're building a product, if you're building a solution, right, you want to build that product for users, right? I mean, you're not building it for yourself, right? And then in this flow, you'd see that there's nothing like users, right? Users are not integrated into this flow. You just want to build, sharply ship that idea, probably test it, or maybe don't test it, launch, and then see, and expect that the idea works, and expect that you're solving a problem by just doing that, right? So this is what the flow with our UX looks like. But then when we as product managers, right, we we kind of like integrate UX into the product development phase, right? It makes things more easier, and it makes things simpler for not just us, but also like for the users who we're building for. So basically, right, you have like ideas, right? You generate an idea, and then you validate the idea. So at this validation stage, what you're literally doing is you're trying to like you're conducting research, right? You're trying to validate that idea and see if like this problem is something that a lot of people are facing, and if people would welcome the solution, right? You're looking for areas where uh you know, you're looking for ways to speak to users, right? Try to gather like pain points, try to understand what they want, and then act on it, right? Understand like their motivations and whatnot, right? So you speak to user, conduct research, maybe interviews, surveys and whatnot, right? And then before you start doing like anything UX, right? Like you introduce like UX processes, things like maybe brainstorming session, flows, you're drafting out flows, you're creating like your user personas, trying to understand like who you're designing for. You're doing all of those things, right? That entails UX, user experience, right? User experience, not orga experience, or not orga centered design, right? So you're doing all of those things before you then move like into like designing or developing like your high fidelity prototypes, right? And after that, you're probably testing, not probably, definitely testing your solution, right? So there's a reason why you would want to test your solution at this point after designing like your prototypes, right? You want to test the solution to see if that prototype or that flow you've designed for is like usable, right? Are users still encountering any problems when they're trying to like perform certain tasks, right? So basically what happens here is like literally usability testing, you know, assigning tasks to users or do certain things. How would you log in on this platform? You watch them do these tasks, right? You ask them questions, right? Well, why are you doing this certain way? Right. Basically that's what you're doing here. So you're testing that prototype that you've developed, right? Before even like the developers even write any line of code, right? And then what this does is it shows that you've incorporated UX, right? Down up to this part, right? And then even in like in your testing phase, right? You can still, you know, um uncover like one or two issues, right? From testing with your users, right? I mind you're not testing with um the CEO or stakeholder here. You're not testing with that person because that person maybe might be like it might be might be part of your users, right? But you want to test with like people that will actually use your product, right? People you're building for, right? Like a large chunk of your user base. So you're probably doing like testing, like you uncover like issues. You probably would need to go back to introduce like work on like some UX shades, right? Just so you can you can fix some of those issues and then come back to design or and then test again. Maybe you encounter issue, you can go back to design, make those changes, right? Like so basically you make those iterations, go back to test again. Once once you've tested, right, you probably like now want to like give it, sign it off like to the developers to work, right? So right, and then this flow literally works well when you're working with agile methodology. You have like sprints and milestones. You have like milestones and sprints, right? You have certain things you want to deliver in a milestone, and then you there's a particular amount of time that's allocated to design. Design can fix in all of these things that we've talked about here into that milestone, test it. Once it's tested, like they've gotten like feedback, they can then push it to developers, right? Start building. And then one of like very good advantage of doing this is that it helps you reduce like cost, right? So just imagine, like we're going to do like a lot of imagine. So now just imagine that you've done all of this, you tested it, and then you didn't test it, or you just pushed it to your developers to start developing right from design, right? And then developers start developing, and then maybe after they develop, you go and test it, right? And then you see that a lot of users are complaining about like, oh, things that could have been avoided, or I can't do this, I don't understand this. A lot of problems are coming up, right? I mean, you're going to incur more costs if you have to come back again to design, or you have to come back again to like UX processes, right? And try to like fix all of those mistakes, right? That could have been avoided if you have just tested your prototype here. So for me, I would normally advise like UX designers and product managers, right? So test products, right? Test your prototypes after design have developed such prototypes, right? And then you're not just testing the prototypes with like your QA, right? I know like QA, if you're in a team, right, you probably have like the QA who is like always like doing testing to make sure that things work, is functional and whatnot, right? But then you want to have like a user base, right? Potential users that you can test that prototype with, right? So now imagine you're building a solution for retail traders, like market women in the market, right? People that sell say tomato, pepper. You're building an app, they're building like an app for them. Now you've built that app, you've done the design, right? You now say, let's push it to developers, to the dev team to start building, and then QA will just test it, right? QA, if you look at that flow, right, the QA team is not even necessarily, right? They are not your user audience, right? They're not your target audience, right? So they might not, um, you know, um, uncover like problems that the real users, the people in the market that sell tomato and pepper, people that will actually use your product, they might not uncover some of those problems, right? Because maybe they're tech savvy and whatnot, right? So they might not uncover all of those problems. So you want to like make sure that when you're doing like this testing at this stage, you are testing with um not just people in the office, right? You're not doing guerrilla testing. You're not testing people with your colleague or your designer, with your fellow designer or your fellow PM, right? You're not testing with that person. You're testing with like the actual target audience, right? If you get what I mean. So you build a solution with dev team then you then launch, right? And then it just does not end there. So you launch, and then you're gathering feedback from the users, right? You probably will gather like a lot of feedback from the users, and then all that might lead you to uncover again problems, right, or issues or things, areas you can improve on. And you probably maybe need to go back to your design or like your UX processes, or you need to like um, you know, do like further research, right, just to like understand some of these issues before you then go with this flow again. Now we see the difference between the two flows. We see the difference between this one that has like US processes integrated into it, right? And then we see what this can do, right? A lot of flows that look like this without UX integrated into it. For me, I would say I normally would say you're building your product based on based on vibes, right? You're not building your product like there's no data to back what you're building, right? You've not done like your assignment, right? To validate your idea and then incorporate like basic UX processes into like your flow, your product development process, right? So as much as possible, all right, let's try as much as possible to incorporate like UX processes, right? And I'm saying this because I have like a lot of experience working in dev shops, right? I have 3 years experience working in dev shops, and um I see like a lot of processes being like skipped, right? You just like forfeit. You don't want to do some of those things because there's no time, right? There's no time to do certain things. And then you come back, the product probably like launches, and then you start seeing like, oh, there's problem, there's bug, the users are complaining, there's this, there's that, right? Because you've skipped some things that is very crucial for your product to scale, right? So as much as possible, um let's try as much as possible to, work together with, UX designers. Try to, even if we have small, short amount of time, right? Try to incorporate some of all these little things into our processes, right? And then, I mean, it's just going to make building sweet for everybody, basically, right? um I mean, like UX is at the center of all of these things, right? Things like user research, information architecture. So some of these things we'll touch on them as we go along, right, in today's webinar. Information architecture, user flow, user feedback, wireframing, prototyping, accessibility, most especially accessibility, right? Design systems, personas, usability testing, right? So these are just like a few things, right? A few UX methodologies that you can, incorporate or integrate into like your product development process, right? Um, please, let's try as much as possible not to let some of all these things. We don't necessarily have to do everything, but we can do some depending on the scope of the project, what we're trying to like achieve, and whatnot, right? Um, Please, can I just get like thumbs up if everyone is with me, just to make sure I'm not talking to myself? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So basically, right, as product managers, I mean, I've worked with like a couple of product managers in the past, right, that try as much as possible to integrate some of all these things, right? Documentation is properly done. You always see product managers trying to draw out like user flows, right? Wireframes too. Like I see product managers trying to do that. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's their job, right? I think the job is the work is like the role of the UX designer, or at least they go like a step further to try to make things like seamless for the team, if you get what I mean, right? So as much as possible, like to stand out as also stand out as product managers, right? We need to try as much as possible to integrate some of all these methodologies, right, into our flows, right? And then again, it's not just design. So a lot of people will see design as you're building something that is aesthetically pleasing or is attractive to the eyes. It pops, it pops, it pops. A lot of people will see that and say, "Oh, that's just design." But like when you combine normal design with like UX, right? That's what makes your product like stand out, right? That's what makes um basically like your business stand out, right? If you get what I'm saying. The fact that you're putting like the user at the center of whatever you're doing is what make your product stand out, right? You're not putting like your orga or your stakeholders at the center of what you're doing, right? It's the user should always come first, right? Always come first. Prioritize the user, basically, right? And I mean, it can still be tricky, right? Because your stakeholders and your guy, they don't pay your salary when they say you do something, right? And there's that conflict, right? And you just need to like find a way to like manage all of those things. But basically, don't forget, like put the user at the center of whatever you're doing. So now very quickly, not very quickly, right? Because we're going to like dwell on this um a bit, right? Like some of the like best practice um that we as product managers can incorporate into our flows, into our processes, right? One is research, right? Like I mentioned earlier, be guided by data, right? Be data driven. Don't just build on acts and vibes, right? And then you can conduct like research, right? Qualitative research, quantitative research, with your users, right? So basically, when we look at qualitative, we're talking based, we're collecting data by direct observation and it's usually with a small group of users, right? Trying to see, understand like their behaviors, right? Um, their pain points, their frustrations, so trying to like have an idea of all of those things, right? Just basically to understand your users, understand what you're building for. And normally, right, I would say like when we do this type of research, um, as much as possible, let's do it in person, right? Maybe not in person. I mean, if you don't have the budget for it, you could do like virtual qualitative research, right? So like there are types, right? You could do like things like user interviews, right? Conduct like user interviews with this set of users. Just try ask them questions, try to like understand um you know their pain point basically, right? And then when it comes to qualitative research, we are literally asking questions like why, how. So you see like a lot of, oh, why did you do this? How would you do this? what would you do if this you get. So you're asking questions that starts like with some of those like words, right? And then ask open-ended questions, right? So you're able to like see like into the mind of like whoever you're talking to, into the mind of the users, right? I mean, there might be something you're looking for, or there might be something you're not even looking for that they would say, right? And it can literally still help your product, right? It can help you basically. And then when we're looking at quantitative research, is basically like collecting data from a larger group of people, right? So in this stage, in this phase, right, you probably will be looking at maybe 30 or 30, 35, 40, a large group of people, right? Try to like understand like the problem, right? And then maybe at this point, you want to be doing things like user survey, conducting survey with like your users, gathering some of those data and analyzing it, right? But one very key thing I would advise is try as much as possible to combine these two guys together, right? Qualitative and quantitative research, combine them together. And I'll give like um an example, right? Um, so now imagine you're doing like, again, I mentioned we're doing like a lot of we're seeing a lot of images, right? So imagine you're doing a survey, right? And then you you just want to do survey for your research, right? That's all you want to do. But now I send that survey to 30 people, and I don't know like the state of mind, right? Those 30 people they are in. Maybe some of them are in transit, some of them are in Lagos traffic. Lagos traffic is probably treating their beating their ass up, right? You don't know the state of mind like those set of users are, and you send them to them. Me personally, right? I might just select anything in your survey. I mean, just like, oh, let me fill the survey, select anything, and then if you act on the data that I submit, right? If you act on only that data I submit, right? It just shows that your data or your findings or your insights, right? My is flawed, right? Because like it's not genuine. I did not answer, you know, that survey um in the right state of mind, right? So now imagine that me, one person, right, out of 30 users, do that same thing. And now I'm doing only me do that thing, right? And then let's say there are 10 other users, right? Or maybe 20 other users, they just select other things again. You see how that data, right, is not all that strong, right? It literally cannot hold water. So you want to, as much as possible, combine it with like qualitative research, right? So you could combine it with user research, user interviews, right? If everybody, if they filled your survey, still speak to people, right? Like speak to your users. Oh, what do you think about this? How would you do this? Da, 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 da. Ask them those questions, da, 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 right? And then try to like combine like the findings you get and see if users, right, are saying the same thing, right? So that way it makes your data or your finding like more solid. You get what I'm saying? So it makes it more solid. So um combine two research types together. That's one tip I'll give everybody. Try to combine them together to make like a data pretty solid. Right. Another thing is navigation, right? Keep things simple, make things easier for user to find. Now, if we look at this, right, this screenshot was saying is an actual website. So if you go to www.adgreen.net, I don't know the pronunciation, but if you go there now, this is what you will see, right? This is what the website looks like, right? And then it looks weird, right? It's hard for me to like find certain things because everything is just all up in my face. So you want to make things like easy for user to find, basically. And then when we're talking about like navigation, this is where you know information architecture comes into play, right, in your product, right? If you don't pay attention currently, if you don't currently pay attention to um the information architecture of your product, right? I mean, it's high time we start like looking into that, right? So basically, what it means is how would you um put group content together? Where would you place content? How would you arrange content on your product so that it's easier for you to see, right? It's easier for users to like navigate, click on certain things, and see all of those things, right? That's literally what information architecture is. It's just a practice, right? And then there are like ways you could you could um you could go about it, right? Um, doing things like card sorting, basically is another methodology, another UX methodology. Research. It's a form of quantitative research where you get like a group of users, tell them to sort contents under categories in a way that it makes sense to them, right? So you could leverage on that to build your information architecture of your product, right? So when you build that product, it looks something like this, right? It's easier for people to find certain things on the product, right? So if you look at booking.com now, if I wanted to look for apartments, right, I would literally go to stays, right? If I ask anybody on this call, I'm sure everybody will agree with me that what will come to your mind first is stays, right? If I want to book a flight, like I'll have to go to flights because mentally we users are wired a certain way, right? So you don't want to maybe reinvent the wheel or build something outside of the user's mental model, right? Um, if you go to Konga.com, for example, and you wanted to get a laptop, you would see like categories like on the navigation, right? You'll probably go to computer and accessories, right? That's where your mind will tell you to go to first, because we've been wired a certain way to 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 see certain things in a certain way, right? And that's why like at the very when you log in when you access like products or websites, you would normally see like maybe the sign up button or the login button at the top right. Without even thinking about it, if you just look at the top right, it's there, right? In most cases, maybe like 99.9, right? In most cases, you just look there and you see it there, right? So you want to place things where users can easily find them, and then you want to like put your users in mind when um, when it comes to like navigation, basically. Because if users cannot navigate, cannot move around on a product, if they take time, if they spend more than say 3 seconds trying to decide, they're stuck on the screen, like it means there's a problem, right? It means that there's an issue. Um, there's an issue with that product, right? So you want as much as possible try to um reduce the amount of time user will spend looking for certain thing on your product, right? So if you've not been putting things like information architecture into consideration when you're building products, right? I mean, it's high time you start doing that, right? You necessarily don't need to do it as a PM, but I mean, it's good for you to like have that idea so you can speak to your designers about it. And I'll tell you something for a fact, right? Like a lot of designers are lazy, right? They will tell you, oh, man, we can't do that. This is also what we do. We'll give it to you like this. And then because you don't have like that idea as a PM, you just say, ah, okay, no, I get you. And then you let it go. But I mean, it's very important that I mean that's why we're here on the course today, so that we can touch base on some of all these like practices that um you can incorporate into like your product basically as you're building as product managers, right? Um, so basically, right, keep things simple, make things very easier for users to find when it comes to like navigation. Um, next thing would be like long forms, right? I'll tell you something for a fact, right? A lot of users don't like filling forms, especially when they're long. And um, I'm one of those users, right? I don't like if I see something that if I'm trying to like maybe create an account on the product and I see that oh, the amount of information I need to fill is long, I probably will not do that. I'll do this later, maybe when I have time, right? So imagine looking at this first screen. Imagine collecting full name, email address, phone number, house number, street address, house address, postal code, bank name. Like imagine collecting some of all these detail.
Um, sorry, Gabriel. Okay, now we can see the screen just moved.
Oh, but did we see this part when I was talking?
Uh, Forms. Yeah, we can see forms now. All right, thank you.
Wait, we can all see forms, right? Please let me get a thumbs up. Everybody can see forms. Okay, okay, okay. So basically, what I'm saying is like a lot of users, right, don't like filling forms, right? Especially when the form like it's long, right? Um, imagine this first screen, you're you're trying to like get the user onboarded on the product, and then you're collecting all of this information. You make all of this information mandatory, like first name, email address. If I scroll down, phone number, house number, I'm collecting all of these things. I mean, BVN, guarantor's name, right? I mean, I've worked on a product like this before, right? And I I saw the documentation, and like I saw all of this like information that they wanted to collect for the product. And I told the PM, well, why are we collecting all of these things? And then the PM was like, oh, because that's what the client wants, right? So this is where this is if you have like an idea of UX, if you have a solid idea of UX, you would understand the user, right? I mean, you're not thinking, you're not building your product because the client wants something to be done a certain way, right? You're building your product because users, people, right, are going to use this product, right? The client probably will never use the product, right? The users will use the product, like most of the time, or even not all of the time, right? So a lot of users don't like feeling like long forms, entering all of this. It can be overwhelming for users, right? And then for me, like I mentioned, it gets overwhelming, right? I probably will not feel this. But then again, if you feel like if you're working on a project and you feel like you want to collect all of this information, one thing you can do is you can break all of this information, right, into like steps, right? Now, if you look at the second screen, you will see that now I've broken this into steps, right? Step 1 of 4. So you can break them into steps. So it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel too much to the user when they see it. If you combine all of the steps together, you're still probably collecting all of the information that you're collecting on this one screen. But then because you've broken it into steps, it feels lesser, right, to the user. And I mean, it's just like design psychology, right? It feels lesser to the user. I feel in the first one, I click continue. I can see I'm making progress. I would want to continue to finish it, right? So you can break that into like steps, like for your users. And then if if this does not work, right, if you feel like a lot of users are still complaining, oh, it still feels too much, right? I'm feeling this, I'm moving like I'm able to do this. What you can then do is you can collect just like very basic, information, right? Maybe full name, email address, phone number, they create a password, they get onboarded to the platform, right? Now, the reason why I would say we should do that, right? Or the reason why I advise designers, right, and product managers that we should go through that route is we can collect all of those very, very important information, right, for them to get onboarded to the platform, right? So we can easily basically like customer acquisition, right? Can get all of this information, get them onboarded, have like a place where they will complete onboarding inside the application, right? And then don't make it mandatory, right? Leave them, let them experience your product, right? Let them see what your product offers. I mean, again, they will not be able to perform certain action until they completed their onboarding, right? But that way, onboarding users would be very easy, right? You don't necessarily have to collect all those information immediately, right? Before you onboard them, you can collect like very basic information that you know you need at that point, onboard them, and then push every other thing into like onboarding. Let them complete that onboarding there before like they can start like using the application, right? So that way you're able to like onboard more customers, right? Trust me, if we take a poll now, I'm sure most people agree with me that they don't like filling long forms, right? So try as much as possible to avoid that like, when you're building like product, right? Um, Next thing would be optimizing for mobile. Now, designing for mobile for smaller screens, right? And this is somewhere that this is somewhere that a lot of people, right, designers especially when it comes to UX, right, fall short of. Now, as at 2023, um 54.67, so let's just approximate it to like 55% of users, right, they access like the web on their mobile phone. So now if you look at this like charts, right, we see that from 2016 to 2023 there's been like an increase, right? 48, the trend like it's going all the way to the top, right? A lot of people are accessing like even at 2022 59% of people of users access like the web from their mobile phone. So it's very.
Sorry, we don't see the chat though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing and share again, please. I apologize for that, everyone. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah, yeah.
Please tell me, what do you see on what do you see now?
Designing for smaller.
Designing for smaller screens.
All right. Thank you very much. Right. So what I was saying is, um, if you look at the trend, right, from 2016, a lot of people are accessing like the web on their mobile phone. This is just for mobile phones only, right? So you see that in 2022, 59% of users access the web on their mobile phone, right? 2023, 54.67. Um, so like let's approximate this to 55% of users access the web on their mobile phone. Now, bear this in mind: if 55% of users are accessing the web on their mobile phone, what's left, right? What's left? That's 45%. Now, those 45% of users do not necessarily access the web on their desktop, right? Bear this in mind that there is still like tablets, right? So if we split that into, let's say we split it into two, we can say, oh, maybe 20 something percent access on tablets, 20 something percent access the web on desktop, right? If we look at it that way, we see that majority of users, right, access like the web on their mobile phones, right? And if I ask now, how many of us are joining this call on their mobile phone, you would see that a lot of us, like majority of us, right, are joining the call on their mobile on our mobile phones, right? Maybe except me, because I'm on the web. So basically, like a lot of users are using their mobile phone. So you want to prioritize mobile designs, doing responsive designs, right? So if you're building, especially if you're building like working on SaaS products and then you're building like maybe desktop first. But for me, right, I normally would build like desktop first and then I do the responsiveness for maybe tablets and mobile, right? But definitely I always have to do it for mobile, right? I will go through that round. So that people that will say mobile first and then do desktop later. But whichever way, right, whichever route you're going with, if you're doing desktop, you're working in a team or you're working with designers that are building for desktop, please and please do not leave the responsive design, right, to the developers to do, right? Do not leave it to developers to do. If designers are saying, and developers can just do it now, we don't have time, please ensure that the designers do it, right? Because a lot of things can change, right? A lot of things, when you're dealing with responsiveness, a lot of things can move. And those are like areas that developers will not necessarily consider, especially except it's a developer that has very solid foundation when it comes to UX, right? A lot of developers will not consider that. So in order not to like um disrupt your UX, right? The UX of your product. Please let your UX designer come up with like responsive design. Now, if we look at this design, this is a teleout interface that I did one time. So if you look at this is what it looks like on web. Now, if I were to leave this to a developer to do, I guarantee you that one developer would give me something that looks like this as responsive design, right? You can see what this looks like. One developer will give me this. And then if I'm looking at this, I can see like a lot of things are missing on the screen.
I can't see your illustration. Sorry to
Yeah, we can't see what you're referring to as responsive design. Okay, now we're there.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Man, I apologize. I think it's my network. My network is lagging. But you can hear me clearly, right?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So if I give
So
this,
Vincent has a hand raised. I don't know if it's a question.
yeah, Elizabeth, can you go on, please? Elizabeth, are you there?
I guess
Sorry, it was a mistake. Sorry about that.
also Gabriel, I really enjoying the session. But I need to call your attention to the fact that this is 7:47 already.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I mean, we started a bit late, so I'll just like wrap up everything in a bit. Give me 5 minutes to wrap up everything, please.
All right.
So basically, if I leave this to a developer, the developer will probably give me something like this, right? But then a designer will give me something like this. So if you look at this, you see like some of the elements, right? Like they've been shifted in a certain way, they've been moved to like different position. You can see the buttons on the screen, right? So as much as possible, let your designers come up with responsive designs, right? Another thing will be accessibility, right? You're building a product that gives a sense of belonging, right? There are people with disabilities that you want to build for, right? People like visual impairments, hearing, motor, and cognitive impairments, right? as much as possible, like factor in the set of users when you're building your product, right? And again, one of the reasons why you want to do this is because there are laws, right, that mandate us, right, that mandates um, companies, right, to make their product accessible, right? So you want to like abide, especially if you are building a product that is not just like for the Nigerian market space, right? You want to like scale and expand like to maybe like to the Europe, right? You would have to abide by some of all these laws, make your product easily accessible. Another one more thing, three more things rather, interaction and feedback, right? Imagine you were to go to the ATM and you wanted to withdraw money, you slot in your card, but and you press the amount you want to collect, but the amount did not come out. The money did not come out, right? And then they tell you thank you for withdrawing, right? It does not make any sense because like you didn't get any feedback. So if you're using like products, right, make sure that for every action like your user take, right, every interaction your user make with your product, right, let it be like a feedback, right? If I'm copying something, let me get feedback that oh, whatever I've copied has been copied. If I'm sending money, let me get that feedback, right? Make sure your users get that feedback. I mean, and again, there might be feedbacks that maybe the actions that will probably take time, right? Instead of just leaving your users stuck there, show something on the screen, right? Or maybe validating payment, this will take a few minutes. I mean, just to show that something's happening in the background. You probably call it like APIs and whatnot. Make sure that there's always like feedback, right? Next thing would be like usability testing, right? Test your designs, right? At every stage, if possible. I mentioned this earlier on how like you need to like test your designs before like even giving it to like developers to build, right? Make sure you try as much as possible to like test your designs. Make it easier for users, right? Make sure that you can create like tasks, right? Or how would you do this? There are tools again that you can use, right? Like Maze that you can use for virtual testing. How would you do certain things? Watch them do those things, right? Make sure that the steps, right, that they take to perform some of all these actions, some of all these tasks, right, is very seamless and minimal, right? You don't want to, you just don't like spending too much time to do certain things. Imagine I wanted to send money and I'm spending like 2 minutes to send money, right? It does not make any sense. Basically like test your designs, right? And then there are like metrics that you can use to um you know look at the how successful your product is, right? Basically, some UX metrics like tax success rates, how many users, right, were able to complete like certain tasks successfully, right? Time on tax, error rates, and some of all these other metrics, right? That's that's I will not be touching, I'll not be dwelling on because of time, right? One bonus tip I will leave out for everybody is to look out for unsolicited feedbacks, right, and prioritize them. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because this kind of feedbacks, right, feedbacks that you do not ask for, over time I've seen like those kind of feedbacks are very, very genuine. Like imagine I'm using your product and I encounter a problem and I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like, why do I get to see this all of the time? And I go to like your feedback, um, feature on the application and I drop that feedback, right? That feedback is a very genuine feedback, right? Some users, right? If you interview some users, they might just tell you what you want to hear so that you can let them go. But you see some of those feedback that you do not ask for, right? Prioritize those feedback, right? Because like they would seem not seem right, they are always genuine. And again, be user-centric and design-centric, right? This is even like why we're doing this today. Product managers, we need to have like an idea of how design work, right? Some of like the best practices like we've seen already. So also be user-centric, right? Always put your users at the center of everything. Please don't put your organ or your CEO at the center of everything, right? You can get that feedback and whatnot, but make sure that you know you're designing for your users. Put them at the center of your product development process, right? And I think that would be all. Right? That would be all. So we can just take questions at this point. I'm sorry, I'm eating deep into our time.
All right. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you so much for such interesting session, detailed explanations.
Yeah.
I mean, your network wanted to, was taking, was freezing the pages. But yeah, so I'm not the only one that I've gotten quite a lot from this, and I'll take my lessons back to my design team from tomorrow. All of us will hear it together. So, so at this point, we'll just like quickly take questions, maybe one or two. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hands. Yeah, the network really helps that those slides. Well, hopefully, you'll make it available for us, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you so much for that. You guys, please let's say thank you to Gabriel for giving us such gem. All right. So Elizabeth, you have a question. Maybe after Elizabeth, we'll take one more follow up. But for now, we only have Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, your question.
Oh, yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Gabriel, for that. My question is around user research, right? So you mentioned that you can combine, like, as when you're doing your research, it's advisable to combine multiple research methodologies rather than just using one. So I want to ask, right? In combining, is it that you just pick like random methodologies to combine, or how would you, if that's not the case, right? How would you know what methodology to focus on depending on the kind of product you are building? So how does the product manager know for sure that, okay, for this product this suits it better? Oh, I shouldn't do survey, I should do this other one. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. So I mean, thank you very much. I think it depends on the problem you're trying to solve, right, or what you're trying to like achieve. If the problem you're trying to solve is, say, maybe something like if navigation, right, information architecture, you probably, when it comes to like quantitative research, you probably want to use something like card sorting, and then combine it with maybe like user interviews, and whatnot, right? But basically it comes down to what you're trying to like achieve, what you're trying to like get from that research, right? So the thing is, before you conduct any form of research, right, there should be like a goal, right? You have a goal in your mind, right? This is what we're trying to achieve from this, right? These are like the objective. These are the things we need to do, right, to achieve this goal, right? So it basically still depends on the goal, right? I mean, that's it in a nutshell, Elizabeth. And again, it depends on your budget. So if your company, they don't have money, right, look for the cheapest like research methodology that you can use, right? Look for the cheapest one. So user interviews and surveys, right, are over time been known to has been known to be very cheap, right? You don't need to like spend a lot. You literally don't need to spend money to use those types of um um research methodologies, right? Because like there are tools out there, like free tools, right, that you can use. So it depends on the company's pockets, right, and then the goal of the research, basically.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. I mean, if there are no more questions, we'll just say a very big thank you as a community for being available for us today. I mean, you joined super early and you delivered. Thank you so much we've learned quite a lot from you today, and I'm sure everyone would implement this on their teams, and we'll see designs that are very okay on web and mobile going forward across different products. So thank you so much. Let's clap for Gabriel. Let's send in our love.
I think I
Yeah.
can say a question.
You said?
Thank you, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
someone sent a question, right?
Okay, maybe you can just like take that so we wrap up.
As a product manager, what are the basic things one need to know about UX? So I think one thing, right, would be things like research, right? Like I earlier mentioned, like research, flows, right? Wireframes, like user flows, like user journey maps, right? Some of all those things, right, are things that like you not probably, like, you definitely need to know. I mean, there are resources that I could share, right? I mean, there are other PMs, right? We could share some of those resources on the community, so you can get accustomed to them, basically. But yeah, some of all those things, right? Prototyping again is another thing, because like it will help you a lot when it comes to like usability testing and whatnot, right? Prototyping is another thing. So basically, some of all those things that I've shared today, right? I think like you should get yourself like familiar with basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you for that. With that, we've come to the end of the webinar. Quick one. This is to announce that there are other community programs happening. On Saturday, we have our weekly check-in call. That's our group therapy session for program managers. I know we are going through a lot on our different teams. And on Saturday, 8 to 10, we meet to discuss, rub minds, share ideas, right on the call. Then by next week, Tuesday, 7 to 8, we'll have our group mentoring session where we'll bring in a mentor to answer tons and tons of questions that we have. So with that, we've come to the end of the program. Please follow us on all of our social media channels, including YouTube. The recording of this call will be made available there. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night's rest.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.